Well, that was strange. I'm Paul. This is Paul Talking Politics. Hello the world. Hello the internet. Oh, I think we're just about back to normal, or whatever passes for normal nowadays. Are you not entertained? So, let's talk about where we are the day after the night before. I'll see you after the intro. Yeah, so that was all a bit strange. Anyway, it's now Tuesday. I've watched enough Newsnight for a lifetime. I've done all the papers, all of the podcasts, and so yeah, let's see what I can make of it. Whether or not it's anything in addition to whatever you've heard elsewhere, well, you can be the judge of that. But let's just get on with it anyway, for the sake of clicks and giggles. So here we are. These are the big changes. We've obviously got Braverman out. Maybe Rishi watches the video. That'd be nice to think. But anyway, so she's out. Cleverly has gone in to replace her. He's been moved from Foreign Secretary to Home Secretary. So from a life of first class jets to a world of first class trouble. Cameron has been parachuted into the House of Lords and then into the Foreign Secretary's seat, entering the House as the Lord of Farquhar. Berkeley, not Baker. That makes a big difference. I got that one wrong, first of all. But no, he has... Berkeley has been moved from health to environment. Definitely a demotion there. I'm not entirely sure why. No one can really seem to come up with a convincing reason why that is. He seems to be perfectly nice. And certainly not one of the worst health secretaries we've had recently. Vicky Atkins comes in, and then Esther McVeigh comes in, I think, very much as a concession to the right, a Cruella light, if you like. So those are the big changes. Of course, Coffey's gone, and a number of other people have gone. I think it looks more or less like this. So there's Braverman, and there's Coffey, and Hans has gone as well. There's Berkeley moving round, and there's Cleverly moving across, and in comes Victoria Atkins, the same pair of hands by all accounts, although her husband apparently is a very senior person at British Sugar, which raises some interesting questions. Richard Holden, whoever he is, has come in as chair of the party. And back comes Dave from the wilderness, or his pig shed, or whatever he's been doing for the last however many years. So this is more or less where we are, and I think, what does this mean? I think structurally we have seen a change in the nature of the Conservative, a change in the nature of Rishi's cabinet, something much more closely aligned with his own ideology. Two monumental moves. Everything else really is a rounding error relative to the defenestration of Cruella and the extraordinary arrival of Cameron, and that just in and of itself is a massive repositioning of the Conservative Party. Of the current cabinet, more aligned with Rishi, very much more in his image. It's perhaps not traditional is probably the wrong word, one nationist, but don't forget that even as we're dismantling the Boris shibboleth, Boris was much more socially progressive than either Rishi or Cameron, and probably more economically progressive as well. But obviously the administration came tangled up with all sorts of other stuff, not least the whole of the Brexit ding dong. So as I say, we got Braverman fired, we got Berkeley demoted again. I don't think that's particularly significant for Berkeley. Cameron recalled, Atkins and a few others promoted the Treasury, and their Cruella light coming in. So yeah, it's not. It's a significant departure. and it is again much more aligned with Rishi's own thinking. And here he is. He's asserting his authority. We're hiring, we're firing, we're moving people around, we're promoting, we're demoting. So this is Rishi showing that he is prepared to make tough decisions. Speaking of which, I understand that Cameron was being courted as early as Tuesday of last week. So all of these things were in motion even ahead of Rishi, ahead of Braverman's publication on Thursday. So this was not some reactionary action on Sunak's part, but it has been planned. And the fact that nobody heard about it, I certainly didn't pick up on any cries or whispers that Cameron might be coming back. And when he got out of the car on Monday, I don't know if you heard the commentary on Sky, they were genuinely aghast. People were very surprised. So even though this has been in the offing for a while, they've done well to keep the lid on it. So that's quite an interesting thing. The recall of Cameron is significant for two reasons. The easier one is this one, just the damning of damning indictment of Tory talent. Interestingly, I gather that Jesse... oh gosh, what's his name? Norwich MP. I can't remember. It will come to me eventually. Has left government as well. He always struck me as a very interesting character who clearly pissed somebody off massively because he was a bright guy, but he never really seemed to go very far. Anyway, it looks like he's taken a step down as well. Anyway, this is a damning indictment of whatever Tory talent might be out there. This is what happens when you've been in government for however many years. And you've had that many purges. You've had that many ideological 180s. If you look at the number of people who are coming back into government now, having parted company with Boris in disgust back in 2022, you got a huge amount of ministerial churn. We had purge after purge after purge. So there's very little talent left out there. So much so that you've got to get Dave back. And before we start thinking about Dave as the Great White Hope coming in on his horse, his record's pretty abysmal as far as I'm concerned. He didn't win the election in 2010. He scraped a referendum. He then he won an election in 2015. But having won the election, he then managed to lose the ensuing administration with his concession to a Brexit referendum in 2016. I think it's pretty clear that I think Brexit is a terrible idea. I think that history is proving me and various others right. But not just Brexit, terrible idea, but also austerity, I think, is standing up very poorly in the analysis. So, when we look back at the Cameron administration, we can perhaps point to the living wage and gay marriage. But other than that, the record's pretty patchy, and his foreign policy record in particular is not great. And so him coming in as foreign secretary doesn't exactly inspire tremendous hope. I mean, quite apart from the fact that he's now got to go and deal with our European brothers and sisters, you can look back at the Syria vote in 2013. You can look back at Libya at 2011. And the fact that he really, really, really pissed off Obama with that 2013 vote. So, when it comes to foreign statesmanship, Dave is, it's not even second or third choice, I would have thought. Again, Haig would have been a much better option. But clearly Haig didn't want it. So there we go. We're stuck with second choice Dave. Well done. Wow, what a world. Now, about this lordship of convenience, he's not the first person to be made a lord simply to get him into government. He's not even the latest in the last 100 years. Mandelson and Adonis were both parachuted into the House of Lords. Admittedly, neither of them into Secretary of State or the Foreign Secretary. But is this a massive problem? Well, I mean, the optics aren't great. Let's accept that. You don't really want your one of your most senior officers in government being filled from the hereditary house. It just. We all know that there are anti-democratic aspects of the British administration, but you don't have to make them quite so obvious. That you've got a prime minister who hasn't won an election, and you've got a secretary of state who's not an MP, who's not a sitting MP. It's a bit absurd. In terms of the accountability issue, I think this is a bit of a red herring, and much as it galls me to admit it, Rees-Mogg put it extraordinarily well on Newsnight the other night when he said that does he need to be in the House of Commons to account for the government? Well, technically no, because the whole point of collective responsibility is that, as the Mogster put it, government speaks with one voice. So it really doesn't matter who is standing up and taking and being held accountable for government. Now, ideally, yes, it should be the person at the top of the tree, and there is, without a shadow of a doubt, a thrill that comes from putting a minister through the ringer. Except they never really go through the ringer. Let's call a thing what it is. You know, ministerial questions are an appalling way of holding government to account. A very, very weak way of doing it, which is presumably why Moggy is so happy that it can happen. You know, you're going to get softballs from your own side, and you can flim and flam your way through any real questions from the other side. So ministerial questions, bit of a red herring. As a constitutional point, yeah, it's interesting. The really interesting point is that it doesn't really matter who you put up, because the minute government speaks with one voice, and it's a terrible way of holding the ministers to account anyway. I suppose the other point that's worth mentioning, a ministerial chaos, 8 Home Secretaries in 8 years. Yeah, I mean, that's no way to run a swimming pool, never mind a bloody government. I mean, if we had a school that had 8 deputy heads in 8 years, you'd say that place was in need of special measures. And this is so much more important than a school. And this is just one aspect of the churn. If you look at the number of, well, obviously they've been talking about housing secretaries. You can look at DEFRA. All of these ministerial positions have been subject to a staggering amount of churn. And, you know, that's what happens when you've been in administration for 16 years, but also where you've had so many dramatic pivots, where you've had purges from Cameron to May, from May to Boris, from Boris to Boris, and then Boris to Truss. You know, you're just going to run out. Well, first of all, you're just going to burn through any talent you've got, and find yourself, you know, really scraping the bottom of the barrel and finding Cameron. So again, perhaps a return to a more traditional one nationist conservatism, definitely moving away from the Boris charabang and the Brexit bus. Clearly, I think we're not going to have an election until the last possible minute, because, who's going to vote for the? Who's going? Well, now that Dave's back, I think I might consider voting Conservative. That's about it. I think that I've got to say. I think that the one last thing to say is the extent to which Braverman really does speak for a slice of the country. I honestly don't know. Certainly she thinks she does. The New Conservatives think she does. GB News thinks she does. Esther McVeigh thinks she does. And and indeed Rees-Mogg thinks she does, which probably means she doesn't. If that is that size of... Oh, and Matt Godwin, if you read his Substack, interesting. Well, definitely worth reading. He certainly thinks she does. I hope not, because if she's speaking for those people who were protecting, quote-unquote, the Cenotaph at the weekend, then if that's a sizable proportion of the country, then we're in an even bigger mess than I thought we were. But anyway, there we go. I think that's probably about it at this stage of the game. It's been simply bonkers few days, and hopefully we'll get something closer to normal so we can all calm down and start working towards the exams, which will come around sooner than later. And you will, those of you who are doing A-level politics, I mean, this is it. This is collective ministerial responsibility. This is individual ministerial responsibility. This is the Prime Minister running the government. This is the Prime Minister hiring, firing, exerting his authority, shaping a cabinet that's much more closely aligned to his own ideology than it was previously. Remember, he had to have Braverman in as a concession to the right wing of the party. He's now having to deal with Cruella Light there and Esther McVeigh. So it's not like he's got a completely free hand. He's always having to juggle these different forces. And that's it from me. Again, thanks for your time. If you like the videos, tell your friends, like and subscribe. Questions below the line. And enjoy your politics, and I'll see you next time things go